welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton, and today we're going to tell you about a special brand new program that's going to help people who are getting some public assistance to move up and move on. My guests are from the Housing Authority, Ron Jackson and Michelle Barnes. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
I think, one of the things people don't understand about what you all do is the efforts to help people improve their lives, move on, become self-sufficient. There's a perception out there that, we just take care of people and cycles continue and things don't move up and on and improve people's lives.
Right.
So tell us about this new foundation and what it's going to do. Ron, maybe you start with how it got started.
Well, like you were saying, that there's a perception that us as public housing authorities, that we just primarily just house families and we provide assistance.
Yeah, it's just kind of like apartments. That's all you do.
But I would say in the past 10 years, I think that it's been seen as important that not only housing authorities provide housing, but they provide supportive services. And unfortunately, when you look at the demographics of our population, we have about 60% of our families are considered very low income. That means they make 30% or less of the area median income. We have 80% of families that are extremely low or very low income. So it's really incumbent upon us to really try to find ways to make them become self-sufficient. And in our case, that we've seen that in terms of working with adults, I mean, there have been some limited successes in terms of trying to position them to take advantage of career opportunities and job opportunities and educational opportunities. But there's a new body of research that says that housing authorities working with the school systems and ensuring that the kids get the education, that they meet the education standards, that they graduate, that seems to be a lot more successful effort in terms of breaking the cycle of poverty.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? And why do these kids need some special efforts that maybe aren't provided at the school?
A lot of times the deficit comes at home. The school is doing everything that they can possibly do to ensure the child is getting the educational needs there. But when you have a family that the parent is working and has to work late hours because they're working at a fast food restaurant and things like that, you often have a latchkey type child that's not getting the supportive services at home. So there's an educational deficit at that point. And based on our findings from working with Hampton City School, we know that children in our public housing community are up to 2 years behind academically when it comes to language arts, literacy, mathematics. So the goal now is to close that deficit. And with the foundation being able to offer additional supportive services through our nonprofit, the Step Up Foundation, and working with Hampton City Schools and their Century 21 program, we'll be able to bridge that deficit to close it so that we can help those families break that cycle of educational poverty.
So what's interesting here is you're not creating a new program to create a new program, and you're not overlapping with what the schools do. You've gone in and done the research that says, here's the gap.
Yes.
We're just going to fill the gap here.
Because that's one of the things we've heard before we even went down this road to form the foundation, is that there's a lot of services out there to sort of try to help bridge that gap, especially, among low-income children in general, but specifically our children that receive assisted housing. But the perception was that there was a lack of coordination, especially when it comes to assisting our children. So we saw the foundation as sort of housing all these efforts and coordinating them strategically to fill in gaps that the current resources that are available aren't able to fulfill. So that comes with, like I said, with programming and also with being able to deploy the resources needed, and just working with the existing organizations.
So Michelle, what is the vision for what this is going to look like?
Oh, it's exciting. The first year, our focus is going to be the Title I schools. And with focusing on the Title I school, Hampton already publicizes their testing calendar. So we know when the children are going to have their 9 weeks assessment. We know when their SOLs are going to take place, because that's just something Hampton provides for the parents in general. But for us, we'll be able to caveat off of that and offer additional supportive services. So we know what the deficit is. We know where they are lacking, so we can pull we already have a ton of Hampton City School retired teachers, current teachers, teachers assistants, and everyone that's completely on board and ready to come in and offer those tutorial services so that our schedule will match the testing timeline so that when the children go into those testing sessions, they're ready. They're a little bit further than they were the first 9 weeks, and then each 9 weeks they're constantly improving on their testing scores. So it's a great opportunity. We're excited. We have partnered with Healthy Families to work with families that are doing Mommy and Me Reads classes to promote literacy as early as in vitro from the from the time of 27 weeks of pregnancy. So we are looking to start it early and continue, and as the foundation grows, go up into a cradle to career type environment that we are helping with ACTs, SAT preparations and things like that, college searches, college tours, everything that we can possibly do to help break that cycle of educational poverty.
I mean, this is potentially huge, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the scary things about the educational system is if you are 2 years behind,
Right.
you're not going to catch up and you're going to fall farther
Right.
behind.
Correct.
Because once you hit third grade,
Yes.
Right.
if you're not on reading level, you can't
that's-
keep up. You're
and-
reading textbooks at that point.
Exactly.
One of the-
That's the critical thing for us, and that's why we're concentrating with early childhood learning, because we know in speaking with educators that third grade reading level is sort of the benchmark,
It
because
is.
that's when you start getting into really the math and sciences. And if you're not at the reading level, it's like listening to a foreign language that you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
When you get, and so you just get further and further behind. And we saw from the research that when we partnered with the school systems, that they were able to do, that our children are behind, like Michelle mentioned. They're like 2 years behind in terms of reading and other types of skills that are really vital to have once they get to, once they get to high school. And if they're not able to conquer those skills, then their job opportunities, their job prospects, anything related after going into post-secondary are very limited. So those are the ones that are more prone to be looking for housing assistance. So that's what gets into the cycle. But so that's why we're, like Michelle, the number of programs that we have, that's why we're reaching out to the number of organizations. And also in addition to that, what we plan on doing is after each year, we plan to do a program evaluation to see which things are working, what impacts are we making. We can actually see grades and scores. We can be able to track and monitor, and we can find out what strategies are working, what things are working, and what's not. So having that sort of that feedback when we do the evaluation, which we plan on having an independent party come in and do that to see if what we're doing is being effective. And if it's not, then we could sort of refocus where we need to refocus. So we're not just doing this and not looking for results, but the results are very important for us to continue on being effective.
Right, and you've had results, with a certain group and not with another.
Yes.
Maybe you tweak it and say,
Yes.
how do we become
How do
more
we
like
come-
this?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I'm going to ask something that really, it sounds insensitive, but I think it's a question people have out there. So
Right.
are low-income kids less able to learn? Like maybe there's something about them that they can't catch up. Is there any evidence of that?
There's no evidence of that. There's evidence of they have different kind of stresses, because you think of a public housing setting or also possibly a Section 8 setting, more than likely the public housing setting is isolated from the general community. They spend a lot of time, well, most children, they do spend a lot of time away from school, but the school setting is more important. But if you're in an isolated setting, and like Michelle said, that if it's a single parent household, the mother's working or whatever they're having to tend to, she's not there when the child gets home. So that's why it's really important for us as being managers of housing authorities that we set up the right environment, that we can create the kind of partnerships that maybe if the mother's working, we've talked about even having some of the retired seniors to provide reading for the children, or have a place where they could congregate and do homework while the parents at work. So we're trying to sort of those deficits that we see that creates the risk factors that they encounter when they're in school. Those are the kind of things we're trying to address. And we know from some of the successes that we've seen, and I could speak for myself because I'm a product of public housing, that I know that it doesn't really have anything to do with any innate kind of characteristics or anything like that. That a lot has to do with the environment, having a familiar support to be able to perform at the level you should be, just like your peers. So,
well, and you know, some of the studies I've seen also show that who you're around makes a big difference.
Yes.
So if you're around families who haven't gotten education, haven't gotten jobs, do certain habits, you're more likely to pick those up.
Exactly.
And if those low-income people are in a neighborhood with higher achievers, they pick up some of that.
Yeah, and that's another reason I think before, I would say with HUD that provides the funding for us to provide the public housing in Section 8, it was always sort of funding projects in isolation. And so now the goal is try to integrate families into the greater community, even physically.
And that's
I mean,
what
that's really important,
Yeah, and that's what our Section 8 side does.
Yeah, that's what the section,
it allows the families to be able to choose neighborhoods
Right.
that have schools that are more excelling so that they can put their children in a better position for that. I was able to attend a conference not too long ago, and they were talking about the chronic stresses of children in low-income poverty.
Good, I was going to come back to that.
And what they find is that those children's stress levels are always there. What am I going to eat?
Right.
How am I going to be, you know, who's going to take care of me? How am I going to get to school the next day if I miss the bus? My mother's at work. So they have stresses that a lot of children don't have. So the last thing that they are thinking about is my ABCs and the phonics of those sounds, because they're trying to figure out how they're going to literally survive to the next day.
And you can't think of long-term goals
'cause-
when you're in that immediate survival
cannot.
mode. And you also think that low-income families have tended to move more often. They've
do.
probably been to more than one
Right.
school. That's thrown them off.
Yes.
If you don't have,
that.
they probably couldn't afford
Right.
preschools that teach some of the skills, you know, and the parent may not have been in the home or may have had a
Yes.
daycare provider that wasn't as trained as a preschool teacher. I
Exactly.
mean, there's just so many things that their life circumstances have interfered with their
because
goals.
they're born into an adverse situation.
Yeah.
So they are constantly trying to climb from the bottom just to make ends meet, just for basic necessities.
Right.
One of the good things we were able to do out of our partnership with Hampton City Schools was to identify a large group of children that were eligible for pre-K services but were not receiving them. So based on that, we were able to help Hampton City Schools increase that population by 75 to 100 children every school year.
And that's huge
It
right
is.
there.
Very
That
huge.
is really
It is.
important.
Yes, so those children are now getting the pre-K services that they need.
Right.
And they're being able to move forward with the literacy piece that we're working towards.
Yes.
So this is really, it's one more piece in the continuum
Right.
Yes.
of services
Yes.
from the healthy family environment, the pre-K, the public schools,
Right.
but kids who are identified that could
Right.
use that extra boost. And
Yes.
I think one-on-one tutoring has frequently been shown to help because
Yes.
you're reaching that one
Right.
kid at that moment. And in a classroom, the classroom size we have, that teacher can't back up to here for the one student.
Right.
And it's a struggle. I mean, they do a tremendous job at differentiated learning, but
Right. Yeah, 'cause
the
it-
supplements I
And
think
then
are
to be able to give that additional
'cause in-
support to the teaching
Yeah, and
staff.
it's really important, especially for the city overall, because our children make up a little over 12% of
well,
the
and
student
Ron, that's
population.
not all of the low-income children.
And
Let's
that's not
be
all, no.
honest. That
That's
there's-
just speaking.
I think
know
it's
it's a lot more.
much higher. It's like
yes, it is.
40% or
yeah,
something.
But
And-
just speaking of our children, it makes up a huge percentage of the student population. So everyone has a part to play, and we certainly do. We can't neglect that fact that what we see in
And
terms
you
of
would be able to
education.
reach more
Yes,
people
right.
if families didn't have the chronic things.
Yes.
But as you move people out, then you have spots that open up
And
to
well,
help
that's
more
exa-
people
and that's
because
the
you guys
goal.
are able
Yes.
to provide much more services
exactly.
with federal dollars and
Yes.
with targeted programs
Yes.
than some low-income people are
Right.
getting who aren't able to
Exactly.
get into your system.
That's correct.
Helping
Yes.
them on the road to self-sufficiency.
So who's going to pay for this? How is this going to work? You're a nonprofit. You've got a foundation.
Well, like I said, we have funding from our public housing and Section 8. We have a family self-sufficiency program that
So
Michelle's
you get some
run.
federal funding.
Yeah, we get some federal that we could dedicate toward that in the foundation, and we can apply for grants. The good thing about a foundation that it's tax deductible. So if we do receive donations from like a philanthropic organization or anything, or an individual, that it's tax deductible. So, and you know, we think that that's a really good vehicle to be able to leverage whatever funding that we currently have, that we can match that, and also just with the efforts that the school system already has in place, we could help bridge any gaps that they may have in reaching our children.
And that's really helpful too, because one of the things you've been able to do is partner with the schools and get over some of the privacy, because you guys have privacy rules.
Yes,
they have privacy rules, and it has sometimes hindered our ability to help people because of the privacy laws. So getting through that, getting that consent and getting through that is huge.
Yeah, our attorneys, Hampton's attorneys and our HRHA attorney was able to get together and formulate one document that our families was able to sign, and working with Dr. Cooper in the house at Hampton City Schools and writing the genre of the release was excellent, because we have access to the data until the child graduates high school. So it's not just that specific year. So once the parents gave us the position,
exactly. That's why it's really
so we'll have those results until the child graduates from Hampton City Schools, and we'll know every year where we're successful and what areas need to be tweaked, what we need to readjust, if we need to refocus on a different subject matter, or where we need to go. So it's a good opportunity, and the families were willing to sign up their children, and they participated in focus groups with Dr. Cooper and Ann Bain at Hampton City Schools to target what areas needed to be targeted, what their concerns was, and even with the parents that have children that have special educational needs and that are artistic, we've been able to identify all of them and to offer assistance and build a program that will allow us to do all of those things.
Well, and let me say too, that counteracts another stereotype that many people have about single parents or parents who are in public housing, that they don't care, they aren't doing what they should be doing. They do care. They're signing up for this, they're getting involved. They just don't have as much time or resources to have books in the house, to take their kids to the library, to enforce the homework rules if they're working at night. And you guys can help fill that gap.
Yes, and even with the literacy piece, we've been able to place free libraries throughout multiple communities in our area. We have 8 of them to date, and I don't know if you ever heard of it, but you give a book, take a book. So we have 8 of them, like I said, throughout the communities in the area, and to promote literacy everywhere. So they can come and pick up a book, get a book. We have a partnership with the public library that after their annual sales, we get books donated to us. We had a church out of Newport News donated like 50,000 books. So the literacy piece we are promoting in all avenues.
For parents too. And granted, if you're working 2 jobs, you don't have a lot of time, but you have some. And parents can't help tutor their kids if they don't have that education too. So it's
even our seniors take advantage of the little free library.
Yes, they do. That's fabulous. It keeps their minds active, keeps them alive and contributing, and keeps that passion going. Well, I could talk to you guys all day, but we're being told to wrap up. But I do want to say, if people are listening to this and they're kind of excited about this concept, what could they do to contribute money or maybe time, which might be something you need as much as money?
Well, as far as the contributing, we're still in the process of making an official foundation.
Our attorneys, we got council approval. We got the authority to do this, and I'm acting like you've already.
We have council's approval. Our attorneys has all the documents to file to the appropriate regulatory bodies to make sure that we get the nonprofit status. So we're expecting, hopefully, definitely by the end of the year.
Okay, so it might take a little while to ramp up, but you have some programs for families now, even without that.
Yes, we do.
We have the free libraries throughout the communities. We're still working with Healthy Families to do the Mommy and Me reads. Families can actually reach out to me. We do resume writing classes. We do supportive services. I have quite a few parents that do contact me because their children are getting ready to advance into college and they want supportive services for that. So they can actually contact myself or Ron's
And then-
office to
College
get this
applications,
additional
financial
information.
aid
Yeah.
applications,
Yes.
it's a freaking nightmare.
Yeah,
And even if
so
I've
we
been
could-
through it myself when I was
Right.
entering college, it's a
Yes.
whole different thing for parents. It is highly stressful and complicated.
And one other thing that we'll do for people to sort of keep track of it, we're going to have a special section on our website. That's
Yes.
www.hamptonrha.com.
Yeah.
And so we'll make
And
sure
that
to provide.
changed recently, so it's good that you said that, because I
Yes.
keep typing in the
Yeah.
whole one.
It did.
Yes, so we'll make sure to have information out there, so if anyone's interested, they can keep track of how the organization is forming, the foundation is forming, and then we're planning on having a kickoff or open house once we finally decide on the location. So-
Okay, well, we'll stay tuned for
Okay.
more
Yes.
All right.
developments.
Excited.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
both very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I hope you do understand that the Housing Authority is really providing extra efforts to help people break that cycle of poverty. And step number one is education. And when they are fully on board, I hope you will consider finding a way to support this effort. Thank you for watching.